Finish.
Yes.
Now the thing is optional. So basic data types, these are the basic. We are not going to use anything else. Tuples. Now tuples are done. Now another topic is the type alias. Uh, Type alias, you remember type def in C and C++? Type def is another keyword is there. So what is the
Yes.
type def? It's create a alias name in the same way in Shift also we have a type called type alias. So what is this type alias? Nothing but it will create a different name. So by using type alias, we can create a new name for existing type using the type alias. So simply it is called nickname. Generally, when you are working with the user-defined data type, user-defined data types having the big names. So when the user-defined data types having the big name, then if you want to make a short name, you can use a type alias. It's a straight-away concept, but not gonna use that frequently. So simply I can say type alias, type name, something called my integer, whereas a type is int64. And what I can do, var of uh, my int64 is my int. See here, if you observe the things, this is what int64. So whatever I created int64, I am giving a nickname. I am giving a nickname, and my nickname will always refers that particular type. Generally, we should not use like this. Just for the syntax purpose, I am giving like this. So generally, we are going to use this one for the user-defined data type when we have the structure name like big names. So type alias going to use like this. So simply type alias. That's it. So I was created a dummy name, or you can say I'm created a nickname called my integer for the type called int64. So my integer 64 is reference to my int. That's it. And if you maintain the value, and that value also you can print my int. That's it.
One question.
Yes.
Yes. How do we get the address for all this?
No. I told you
We
right.
can't.
Pointers are completely eliminated.
Okay.
So at the time of debugging, you can see the reference where this is pointing actually, but practically you don't have access because see, whenever there is a direct access of any reference, then there is a more risk in the application. It can be corrupt the applications. So if you know the address, let's say if I given the grant accessing a address and by using that address you are changing explicitly, then application can crash. So it's a strictly not allowed in Shift. You can't apply any pointer related concept here. That means storing the address, accessing the address, or manipulating the addresses are completely restricted. But you can see the reference in the debugging mode and you can check that which reference is pointing to where. That's it. But except that one, explicitly you can't access those addresses. Okay. So these things are basic things. Let me close this one because I want to go next one. Working with optionals. This is very important topic in entire iOS application. Without this one, we can't write the code. So working with optional. So what does means optional? Either or not. Similar kind of concept. So shift optional is a very important underlying concept in the shift programming. Optional is something that you will dealing with lot in the shift development. I said that everywhere this optional is present. Without optional, no coding at all. Then what is that? Shift optional variable or constant can contain a value or a nil value. That means whenever you created a optional variable, that optional variable can contains a value or it can be the nil. So other than nil means there is no data, value means there is a value. That's it. Either nil, either value. Then how to create the things? An optional variable or constant declaration required a question mark after the type. So after the type you need what? After the type you need what? Simply question mark. So whenever you are working with the shift at end of the data type, if you constructed a question mark, then that is going to treat it like what? Optional. So an optional variable or constant declare required a question mark after the type. A declaration of optional variable constant is given below. Let's enter into the code. So any optional type, int question mark or string question mark, is not same as int or string. So what does mean here? Whenever you given a question mark at end of the data type, it is considered as what? Optional type. And these are int string. So what I'm trying to say here, int question mark and int both are not same. Int question mark is the optional. That means it can have the integer value or it can have a nil value. But if you consider int 100%, there should be an integer value. This is a concept. String question mark, optional string, string. So optional string in the sense this string can have the data or this can be the nil. But here 100% that string must be have the data. So both are not at all same. So when you are working with the optional type and when you are working with the non-optional type, don't think both are same. Int question mark and int is different. String question mark and string is entered different. So therefore an optional type cannot be interacted with a normal type. This is only the condition. When you created a optional variable, it can't interact directly with another variable. So if it is a optional, it can interact with the optional variable only. In order to interact a optional variable with non-optional variable, you have to do some kind of code specially. Shift optional unwrapping. So when you created a variable optional, you don't have the access directly. In order to access the variable, we have to unwrap it. So there are two kind of unwrapping will be there. So shift optional variable unwrapping is used to convert an optional type into the normal type. I said clearly. So int question mark or int can't be accessed directly. So in order to convert one optional variable into the normal variable, you must should be unwrap that particular value. There are two types of unwrapping will be there. One is called forced unwrapping and another one is going to call optional unwrapping, safe to do. So forced unwrapping, risk, don't do, I will tell you what's wrong. Whereas optional unwrapping, safe to do, this is recommended. But better than this, I will discuss in the next session. Most probably, we need other topics like collections type if we knows, then we can give you the better opportunity how we are dealing with the shift optionals. Can we go into coding?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Now, again, Xcode. Try to create a new playground. optional. So import keyword which used to import any kind of frameworks. Foundation, remove. So previous sessions we created a variable like this, okay, where let's say my integer colon int question mark. So if you created like this, this is non-optional value. Must be value should be present. The value must be present. If you created like this, this is optional. Then where my value of int equals to 13 or 10. Then var of result, simple basic arithmetic I am doing, of int equals to 0, right? Then let's say try to do something. Result equals to my value plus my integer. So if you are concentrating on this statement, what I am trying to do here, so I am trying to add one integer optional variable with one normal variable. Is it possible? Is it possible? I clearly mentioned when you are working with
Not
the
possible.
optional, yes, when you are working with the optional, don't treat optional variables are same as a normal variable. Don't treat optional variables are same as a normal variable. Optional variables are not same as a normal variable. So I can't add integer and int directly. So it is going to give the error. So you can't unwrap. It's error. So this is the error message it is giving. I can't do like this. Okay, fine. I can't do. Then what is the way to do? Then the way to do is like result equals to my value plus my integer. Then here we have to give exclamation mark. So whenever you added a, sorry, not here, here. Whenever you added a exclamation mark, that means you are forcing to pick the data. You are forcing to pick the data. That means simply it is saying pick the value. Now what I am trying to do here, my integer. It's called force unwrapping. Risk to do. Why it's a risk to do? Are you assign any value in my integer?
No.
No, sir.
What is my integer here? Optional. So what does means optional? Either it can be nil, either it can be value. And here what you are trying to do, you are forcing to pick the value, and there is no value. So what's going to happen? See,
Crash.
so if it is an actual application, state away application will crash. It is a playground, that's why it is saying fatal error, unexpected, found nil while unwrapping an optional value. So always risk. So whenever you created a variable has optional type, there is a risk it there is a risk of what crash, because optional variable either can maintain the value or it can be nil. Now I got the exceptional crash here because it is a nil data. Then, so let's say I am assigning a value to my integer equals to 20. Now data is there. Then the result equals to my value plus my integer. Value is there. Now I'm commenting this statement. Now see what it is saying, that this is an optional value. You can't treat this optional value as a normal. So it must be required to unwrap. Now I will unwrap it. Is it works? See, I got 30, sum of these two. That's fine. But still it is a risk, because just before you assign the value and still it's risk. Then what is the process? Okay. So this is called force unwrapping. Force unwrapping not at all recommended. So we have a alternate another called optional unwrapping. Safe to do. What is this optional unwrapping and how we are going to do this optional unwrapping means, so what I am trying to do here, if my integer is not equals to nil, then my result equals to my integer plus value, right? My value. And here I know when this condition is satisfied, it's not nil. Can I save to unwrap means? Yes, I can. Else print
Hello, 1 minute. My Xcode looks like crashed. It's taking a lot of time to respond.
okay.
Let me kill it. It's not responding.
Yeah, kill that. Don't try to open multiple apps. Just must and should run the go to meeting tool and your Xcode only. Don't try to use multiple versions, because when you are using the Windows, it lack of memory, it loads lot of resources. Done.
Done.
Yes.
Ramesh.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
1 minute. 1 minute.
So every time we need to use optional unwrapping
Yes.
while developing the.
Yes, if your variable is the optional type 100%, but not this kind of approach. This is one alternate approach of this one. So standard approach I will show you later, because there is another concept called late binding, optional binding. So I will tell you that optional binding with the help of some other concept actually. Most probably tomorrow session I am going to cover that one, because I need control flow statements for that one. Like looping I need the collection type. So I'm just keeping the safe way. But this is also the safe way to do. So before accessing, that means this statement is very important. This particular statement is important. Before trying to do like this, make sure the value should be not nil. That is a concept. So before forcing to bring the data from an optional variable, make sure that that particular variable is not having a nil value. That is a concept actually. Okay.
Okay.
So I hope so. This is fine. Then we'll go continuation. Then. So I was created integer, like not only this one, there are the different approaches. Let's continue with the strings. Let give it the var first name string optional equals to then var last name string equals to tutorial. Then I will say var of result like this. So there are three variables are there: first name, last name, result. We have the result. Okay, let's say full name. So we have the first name as a string, optional string, and still it is initialized. So the meaning of this one, or if you compare with these two, then maybe you will understand better. So consider the second one first. So if you consider the second one, what does mean by this one? What does mean the second variable first? Then we'll discuss
So
about the first one.
Compulsory value.
uh, it has compulsory value which we cannot change
That
or
means
anything.
all are variables only, but the second
Yeah,
variable where last name. So last name is a string, right? Is it optional string or the normal string?
normal.
Normal string. That means we are indicating to the compiler last name must be exist. It can't be nil.
Nil.
Yes.
Last name can't be nil. Okay, then come to the first one. First name. What does mean? Like here I given string, here I given string optional. What does means? So here I am initializing the first name. First name is there, yes, but later maybe it can be nil. Deserved. So the meaning of this one, okay, now in at this particular point, I have a data in that variable, but somehow in my logic execution, somehow in further logic execution, there is a possibility this variable can be get nil also. Okay, and this one, full name. The meaning of this one, it must be have data. It must be have data, and uh, not required to do like this, but it's valid. Then print each thing. Print first name, print last name, print full name. Then it has a warnings. Expression implicitly forced for string to any. String to any, it's fine, these are the warnings, we can eliminate these warnings. But if you print so here if you see the output properly, this one printf of first name which is printed optional has value. Why it is printed as optional has value? Because whenever you are printing a optional data on the console without unwrapping, then it's trying to append optional. Even though tomorrow in iOS development also, if you are doing like that, so let's say there is a text field, is an optional text field, and there is a value called text. You are taking the first name from the text field, and without forcing the value, if you say pick the value, then still it will assign optional value. It's a risk. Don't try to do like this. So whenever you know this is the thing which is exists, then what you can do, simply you can check if first name not equals to nil, then you can force it. Fine. Last name. And if you see in the third one, full name is printed nil because I said that the data is exist, but by default it is initialized with nil value. So by default it has nil value, right? Then what I'm going to do now here, first name not equals to nil, then I will say full name equals to first name plus there is a space plus last name, then print of full name. And this one you have to concentrate. I was said this value is non-optional, right? This the result you have to concentrate here. Guys, result you have to concentrate here. Optional value
Yes.
tutorial, but I am not given it is a optional, but still it is treated like a optional. What is wrong?
I think the first name is having the concept of optional.
But here I am already using the force unwrap, right?
No, even the full name is also optional.
But here I was given exclamation mark, right? That means it's not optional variable. When I give an exclamation mark at end of the data type, it's not optional variable. And here if I see in my result, it says optional. So what's wrong? Why it is created, why it is taken as an optional type when I say, okay, this is not optional data. So here I am not saying it's optional or by default is a normal. Here I am saying optional, but still here explicitly I said it's not optional variable, but still my compiler consider as a optional. Why? So straight away, nothing wrong here. When I say this is non-optional like this, then I must and should initialize the value. So here if you consider the output is a nil output here, if you consider by default it has a nil value. Why it has by default nil value? Because the thing you are not initialized. You said it's non-optional, but it's not initialized. That's why it is giving the problem. Now what I'm trying to do now here, let's say equal to like this, empty string. Let's say I'm giving an empty string and then check what's gonna happen. Full name, where we printed the full name. Full name, and here it is printed as a full name. By default is a nil. Right now it has an empty string, but still it is printed as this one. So it must be have data, but not required to do like this, but still it is valid. So standard syntax are either these two only. So like this particular syntax not gonna exist actually. This kind of syntax will exist with the IB outlets in normal scenario. When we are working with the controllers, I will tell you when this syntax will be exist. But for sure, don't try to use right away, okay? Just remove this one. Then make sure everything is fine. Here I got an empty string. Here I got result also. So there are different kind of approaches are there, but try to use these two approaches. So when you say when you initialize like this and says optional, that means the variable is exist and somehow later it can be nil actually. And here last name is 100% exists where the full name is initialized, but it can be resolved with this one. So whenever you are trying to print a optional variable, then it is going to get what? So optional on console also. So from the string optional, if you are printing, try to force it to print the data. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. So when you are working with the optional, make sure that try to write the nil check if it is the if it is optional, and before unwrapping make sure that the value is exists, then only try to access, otherwise application is going to crash. Finish?
Yes.
Any doubts?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Sorry.
Okay. So how to create a optional variable? In the sense, just place a question mark at end of the data type that became optional. So from optional variable, in order to access the data, we have to use exclamation mark. So generally they will ask the question in the beginning level, what is question mark, what is exclamation mark, what is the difference between question mark and exclamation mark? So question mark is called as a optional, whereas the exclamation mark is going to called as a unwrapping. So in order to work with the optional variable, or in order to access the data from the optional variable, we have to make sure to use the exclamation mark to access the data properly. But there is a huge risk of using the optional data because it can be the nil. So we have to make sure that check first. So in order to check, there is a force unwrapping is there. So directly using the exclamation mark without condition is called force unwrapping. Risk, don't try to do like that. Optional unwrapping means first check that that value is not nil, then try to access the data. Then what should be the next concepts? Tomorrow we are going to discuss control flow statements, only control flow statements along with this particular optionals. So control flow statement means, I think today's session you already seen some if else things. So apart from if else, we have like looping concepts. So tomorrow I'm targeting like introduce some collection types like arrays or dictionaries, sets, something like a user defined type, and along with some advanced concepts of optional. So most probably tomorrow we are going to cover entire control flow statements, all control flow statements, looping, switch statements, as well as few collection types. Few collection types in the sense, generally I'm going to introduce three types tomorrow itself. One is a string, literal, traveling through string. Today already we introduced string, right? Now tomorrow concept like how to travel within the string. Like string has a multiple data, I want to travel within the string. So within the string, array or dictionary, those things I will introduce tomorrow for that one. So you have any questions on this topics? Any general question also, it's fine, no problem.
One question.
Yeah.
Since you told me that for optional unwrapping,